Because it was like due that day or something. Okay, so we have been talking about the evolution of the three pathways. Luke, my apologies. Get the notes from JP for what we talked about as a use of the textbook, basically. We'll talk more about that when we meet on Wednesday. But for now, we're picking up looking at the remaining taxa. We're looking at evolutionary pathways between C3, C4, and CAM, as you can see right here. And then we went down to the textbook, and in the bottom box here on page, guys, what page? Okay, 31, bottom left-hand corner, the steps that have occurred, and helps you to go to the textbook to flesh out the information on the study of Flavaria, the first steps, second step, and final step. So please do that work. They are working on this right now, get you all caught up to where we are in our lecture. So giving them a couple more minutes to write that down on their text. Moving then into, okay, looking at evolutionary time. I put a diagram in here that I think you will find helpful. Probably seen it before. So when you go through our reading of these different photosynthetic strategies over evolutionary time, you can refer back to this diagram in order to kind of place you and what else was going on around that period of time. Okay, so you see the Precambrian era all the way to the recent epoch, and if you just kind of spread that out, you'll see what's going on in some descriptions of how the world was, the status of the world during those periods of time. Clear? Just there for reference. So when you actually see this in your study and we talk about it in our class reading, then we can kind of frame it a little bit better. Make sense? All right. So we're going to go down here and talk about growth forms. What I want you to do is to glean epic information on your section here, photosynthesis through evolutionary time. So let's take a couple of minutes for you to do that. Okay? So glean through here with me. Take a quick look. It's only like a half a page. You're going to see first evolved in the Precambrian era. Okay, so highlight Precambrian era. Turn the page during Mesozoic era. And then the Eocene epoch is the next paragraph. If you kind of thumb your way down through that paragraph there, you will see the term that gets us into today, the word today, recent epoch, today, as industrialization, technology, and human populations, etc. Understood? See that in there? Okay, so I gave you the geologic timeline for you to look at. Yes, exactly so. So basically, we go from the Miocene era, and then today, and then it gives you just some brief information there. Okay? So do you see how that's useful? Because now you can kind of place yourself in what are they talking about? What happened with plants during that period of time? So please use that to help you frame the information. That's your work to do. Go through and make notes on that brief section there on evolutionary time using that table of geologic time. Let's move ahead and look down in our section in the end of chapter 2, growth, form, phenology, and distribution of these different species of or strategies of photosynthesis. Okay. Now, if you look at your book, again, this is what I'm trying to demonstrate, I hope successfully, that I have gleaned through this chapter's information and I have set up a table of comparison so that I can get more than just a tidbit of information about the growth and habitat of a C3 plant. How does that differ from a C4 and a CAM? Put them side by side so you can learn about this is what this is what that is, hey, and then look at how they differ, look at how they're the same, maybe timing, maybe whatever, you know, whatever the difference between them. So looking at growth form and habits, let's just start there. Shrink this down just a little bit if I can. I don't know if I can actually, I can do it this way, can I? Maybe. You can't see this, but he can. So I'm talking to him and myself at the same time. So if I can get that smaller, maybe did. Put it on the same page. This is always fun. All right. We get on the same page? Not quite. Okay, I'll try to figure that out. So looking at growth, form, and habits. And for you, so growth, form, and habits, phenology, right? See this? So let me shrink it down onto the page to get better. Too much and it's not going to be very visible. But we see, as far as C3 goes, it's clearly by far the most abundant number of species in total biomass on planet Earth. C4 grasses dominate warm grassland ecosystems. Number of species in C and CAM is greater than in C4. We've got entire regions and parts of continents that are desert areas, right? So any organism that has adapted to live in desert, either wet or high or low, cold or warm deserts, there's lots of different types of deserts. We can see that CAM seems to have a greater number of species than we see in this adaptation. Very unique environments here, a little bit more of a broad stroke geology for our CAM plants. So looking at growth form and habits, C4, looking in the middle column here, grasslands are warm with high light environment. We already know about light compensation points and CO2 net exchange. Okay, so how does a plant adapt to that? And what can we know about how it modifies its photosynthetic apparatus to maximize photosynthesis without damage or loss? Okay. There are important crop species that are found in this are corn, millet, sorghum, sugarcane, and other forage crops, barley, oats, those kinds of things. Annuals, perennials, shrubs, weeds, but very few species are found within the C4 category. Some C4s are native to shady, cool, aquatic areas, but there are rare instances of that. Okay, so compared to CAM, more species, less abundant in biomass worldwide distribution, small importance in most ecosystems found in particular habitats. Two distinct habitats, we see succulents and we see epiphytes. Succulent terrestrial plants in deserts and other arid climates. Here's where we see something that's referred to as convergent evolution in families like Cactaceae, Agavaceae, Euphorbes, Crassulaceae. They're rare in the hottest, driest deserts like Death Valley or the Sahara in North Africa. We're likely to find C3 or C4 plants, but why? Why? What do I have? What are the notes here that I pulled that out for? Can you see a little bit better? Harder to see back there, I'm sorry. CAM plants don't grow fast. Very slow growth rates. CAM plants don't survive long droughts. They can store water, but they have to use it. Eventually, they dry out. Trust me, I have had cactus in, have you ever seen a shriveled, poor, so sad, little shriveled up cactus. If you don't water them, they do that. They will shrivel up and die, and I've actually been able to kill many a cactus in my lifetime. And it's an interesting look, but let's just say you got to water them, okay? So where do we find CAM where they do best? They're going to be in deserts with predictable higher levels of precipitation. There's seasons there, wet seasons, and that's generally where you're going to find a lot of CAM plants. In epiphytes, we find them in the tropics and subtropics. Spanish moss, and we saw example of ferns, isoetes. Both types are subject to shortages of water, and they've adapted to that by night-day adaptation, which is the CAM category, right? Spatial for C4, temporal for CAM. Remember that basic adaptation difference, okay? So back over here, that was our growth form and habitats. What did you find out when you looked in your textbook in looking through that? Gave you some diagrams and pictures just to kind of give you some instance, a boab tree and all that kind of stuff. Okay. In figure 217, the CAM epiphytes, do you guys ever go to, what are they called? Arboretums. Have you ever gone to, like, Atlanta has one. It's beautiful. Down in the parks area, the natural science museum and stuff like that, near the zoo down there, they have an arboretum. It's gorgeous. You go, they're huge structures. Parts of them are glass houses, and they bring plants in from all over the world. You'll have a desert region, you'll have a tropics region. Just walking through there is an opportunity to really witness some of the different types of plants, and you can notice how they've been managed differently based on the kinds of things that they're adapted to. Bromeliads. The reason I asked is because bromeliads are very common. Elk horn bromeliads, orchids, all kinds of epiphytes. Remember the term epi, meaning on, epidermal, meaning on, phyte, meaning plant, plant on is what that, so an epiphyte is a plant growing on a plant, basically, okay? So orchids do that, bromeliads do that. Did you know that pineapple is a bromeliad? Only it doesn't grow on anything, it is actually rooted in the ground. Pineapple plantations in Hawaii, for example, if you've ever seen pictures. So other forms that are examples in these pictures. Do take a look at them. Don't skip over them. Don't turn the page without examining the examples that are given to you in your textbook. And the reason being that I will, if you read my questions carefully on the exam, I'll ask you to give examples. So flesh out your notes so that you do that work and you find the examples that are given for you. And I'll pull out several when we get deeper into the content of later chapters. Moving on down here, looking at phenology. What's phenology? Somebody define phenology for me.
Using the timing of life history events such as initiation of growth, flowering, and dormancy.
Bingo. It's timing, seasonality, cues in the environment that drive these things. Flowering, phenology, when do plants flower? Birds migrating, when do birds migrate? Birds nesting, when do birds nest? And that could be predictable. Well, they always nest in March. Well, climate change could mean now they're nesting in February. It's warmer here now. They can nest a little earlier. They might migrate a little earlier as they're affected by the clues that are surrounding them in their environment. So phenology really is about understanding what drives certain things going on in living systems. Okay, so for us in plant ecology, it would be reproduction, it would be flowering, it would be growth, it would be all kinds of things like that. Okay, dormancy, for example. So looking at phenology in the C3 category, overwhelmingly common in Mediterranean climates. Most rainfall happens in winter. Mediterranean temperate regions, you're going to find a lot of C3 where we are. We're in a temperate region, okay? It is much less common to find tropical types of plants, bless you, here, or to find desert types of plants growing well here, okay? Phenology in C4 category. Annuals, common. Invasive weeds in summer in our Mediterranean climate. Southwestern desert, distinct patterns for the annuals of C4 in North Mexico and Texas desert. There's a summer rainy season, and that's when we see the C4 annuals grow. In Arizona, Sonoran Desert, and northern Mexico, New Mexico, 2 rainy seasons. C3 annuals dominate early spring wildflowers. C4 annuals grow in summer. That's phenology. See that? Okay. And over here, I want you to see, is there any phenology that you can see for our last category? Cam? Anything for Cam?
It doesn't really talk about them underneath that section.
Where?
It doesn't talk about them underneath.
Okay. So we don't see, other than the fact that we know that there is a unique environment for them. Kind of talked a little bit about it up here, where there are higher levels of precipitation or predictable levels of precipitation might be where we start to see phenology for canned plants. Flowers in the desert. There's an amazing bloom that takes place during wet seasons in the desert. That would be our phenology. So it's tied mostly to an abundance of water, making it pretty clear that's when phenology would greatly affect things happening in camp. True? Okay. And then what about distribution? Okay, so if we looked at our headers, we had, I went too far, we had growth form, phenology, and distribution. So going down to distribution, we get you there for him. Sorry, I caught him sick doing that. Distribution. So once again, where do we find C3, C4, and CAM? They favor C3 grasses favor cool temps, winter rains abundant. C4 dominant where temperatures and total rainfall and summer rains are higher. And CAM associated with aridity, temperature, and semi-arid regions. And there's this nice diagram that's in your book, figure 2.18. Let's take a look at that together. What are the lines? What is that diagram indicating to us?
Distribution of C4 grass species as a percentage of the total grass flora across North America.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 2.18, we're 2.18. Okay, here's the geographic distribution. Studies that considered broad distributions, climate factors associated with their dominance, not surprising, physiological differences are associated with difference in distributions. Across North America, percentage of C4 grass species is most strongly determined by summer temperatures. We have that in our notes. C4 grass is most common where summers are warm, due to 2.8. And so we've got 0%, 20%, 40%, and 60%. This is the dominance for C4 grass, just where they said 80% down through this area. It's a percent of total grass form. So most common in distribution that way. Take a look at figure 19 with me. Chance to bring this down. Before we leave the table here, there's a caveat I wanted to make sure you saw. Correlations may be due to phylogenetic factors linking distributions of related species to climate and biogeography, irrespective of photosynthetic type. Indeed, a whole host of factors play a role in how plants interact with the environment. What is that caveat trying to get you to see? It's just one facet, right? C3, C4. Photosynthetic strategy is one facet, one factor in how we relate climate back to species distribution. Just one. It is a dominant one, but there are other things that could determine. You could go someplace saying, well, I expect to see canned plants here and not find any. And then you ask the question, well, why? Why don't I find canned plants here? There's some other factor that determines its distribution in that area. Is that understood? Okay, so it's not black and white. It's not all clear cut. There's lots of stuff going on, but we study one thing at a time to understand how it can drive things, distribution, adaptations. Okay, so going down to that really cool textbook diagram here. What do we see in that diagram? Take a look at it with me. Okay. Part A, what's it showing us? Blue, green, red, distribution patterns across North America, right? Or the United States, basically. And then when you go to B, what is B doing? So we've got color coding, and when we merge these things together, we can see where there overlap. I mean, it's obvious. You can see when you just visually compare C3, C4, and shrubs in Part A, where you're going to have omittance and where you're going to see overlap, right? When you bring it all together, and then you go down to the part below, the relative abundance key, what is that telling us? What do you see? 100% to 0%, 0 to 100, 0 to 100. C4, C3, and shrubs. So here we're looking at the key is lost in place. Combined abundances of C4, C3, and shrubs is indicated by relative abundance key. So if you find a particular area, let's just put our finger on something here. We say we are 50% when we find C4 grasses and 50% C3 grasses and shrubs, somewhere in that color code here. So you go in here and you find that color code, see where the opportunities for them to overlap in a particular area, the key. Does that make sense? So you put your finger on someplace, where does it come down here? Where does it come across here? And where does it come across here on the axes? And then you find that color, and you can go back to the overlapping diagram and kind of get a better description. So using that understanding, and much better in your textbooks than on the board here, what do you see? What's going on? Pattern recognition, looking at this. What's going on? Look at this right here. There's blue, and then there's this little patch of coloration right here, right? See that? What's going on there? So I know, oh gosh, you really can't see this. There's this little patch of color surrounded by blue in your textbook. What's going on there? Where is it? What's going on in that area? So I was trying to show you this area surrounding, and then we're kind of looking right in that area. Look at the holes in where shrubs are found. Tell me the story about that area. What's going on? It's all over there. Basically, no shrubs. And grasses. Not very many C4 grasses, but what do you see in that area? Am I reading that right? I think I'm doing something wrong. Help me out here. What am I looking at? Okay, and I'm using the color key. Use the color key down below to help us out. What's going on in that section using that color key? Hmm? What about C4 and C3 grasses? Where is that? Look for Four Corners. See, you know where Four Corners is? Between the Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and that area. That's Four Corners right there, right in the heart there. High elevation, right? Anybody ever seen Four Corners? Been there? No? Okay. Sorry, this is such a bad picture. So what do we know? I mean, you've got computers. Look up Four Corners. What's the environment like in Four Corners? Where that is right there. That's Four Corners. Right in the crosshairs there. Do you see some blue there?
The actual color, that's right there in the Four Corners.
Right in this area. Okay, so we're looking about a prevalence of shrubs, about possibility of half of the vegetation there being shrubbery. And there we're looking at high, somebody say the word for me, high deserts. These are high deserts at Four Corners. So are we going to see C4 grasses there? Are we going to see C3 grasses there? Maybe. Again, remember, it's just one facet describing what we find there. So what are the types of plants that you find at Four Corners? I'm curious. What's this diagram telling me? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say, a little pumpkin here. Very slow pumpkin. We're on Wi-Fi here. It's one reason why it's so slow. Right. I don't know where I'm going on Wi-Fi. Really? Oh, it's down here. Big part.
Are you trying to Google something? Or what are you trying to
I was
do?
trying to get to Google. I'm just gonna go here and ask the question. Vegetation at Four corners. Oh, I really wanted it to come up because that's what's there. So, I'm sorry, this is not responding. So if I Googled Four Corners, Arizona, look at the habitat. Okay. So what's going on in that little circle of red? You do see shrubbery, right? It's high desert, which means it's dry. What else does it mean? Oh, you got it. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So these guys, as vegetation goes, are going to be adapted to seasonal rainfall, temperatures in the nighttime very cold, right? Very specific environment, and we can see, does the diagram bear us out? Is that what we're seeing in this diagram? Do you think, using the color key? That's what it's telling us? So we're not going to see a lot of C4, C3 grasses there. Probably going to see some cam and definitely shrubbery, right? Low growing types of plants, shrubbery, not trees. Find me another one. Again, curiosity, pattern recognition. Okay. What about, go back to, okay, here. What's going on in these little spots here? Mostly C4 grasses surrounding, but we're seeing some C3 grasses. How about, seems like we've got C3 grasses to the north and C4 grasses to the south. Who's that? What's going on right there? Why north, why south? See that? Okay. Let me show you what I'm looking at. We are, what state is that? We've got to the north C3 grasses, to the south more predominant C4 grasses. Who's that and why? Why is north more blue than south? What's going on there? Pattern recognition, curiosity, investigation. What is that? Who is that? This guy right here, yeah. Is it one of the Dakotas? Who is it? Okay, Luke, we have been investigating this area right here at Four Corners. Now we are up here in this state, and we're wondering why it's predominantly C3 grasses to the north, but we're seeing some overlap of C4 grasses to the south. Why? Why is there a difference? What state is this, and what are the differences? What state is it? Tell me about the geography of North Dakota. It's where? Bring up the topography. We've got some nice diagrams down there. North America, specifically North America. Me too. Yeah. Okay. What does that one show us? This one? Mm-hmm. Here, I'm grabbing it for you. Okay, you see about where we are is, up higher. See the Canadian border? This is very near the Canadian border, right? This is Canada up here. So we've got North Dakota. We're looking at plains, aren't we? Okay, so we're looking at grassland. One thing you want to know, if you can get in and look at elevations, there will be elevational differences, but it's not mountain ranges. It's not the Rockies. It's not in the Rockies. One thing you'll know about North Dakota is it's going to be higher elevation in one part than the other, but it's also nearer some other types of habitat, maybe wetter habitats, cooler habitats. Something else is distinguishing the northern region of North Dakota to the southern region. If you're Googling, Google North Dakota geography. Prairie. See that? Northern region is right near the grasslands of Canada, going up into Alberta and Edmonton, or Alberta and Saskatchewan, beg your pardon. And so northern Dakota is actually very close to the Great Plains of Canada. We're looking at prairie grasslands. So what kind of plants are typical of grasslands? Grass. Very intuitive. Yeah, very, very good. Okay, but we're seeing this overlap between C3 grasses and C4 grasses, right? In fact, if you look at the map for C4 grasses, right where North Dakota is, what is it showing you? That's where C4 is, in the southern region of the state. C3 being predominant over. Exactly. See that? So there you've got your C4 grasses right in the Badlands area. This is going to be a lot drier than the drift prairie to the north. Okay? Coloration kind of shows you that too. I'm looking at this geologic map.
Yeah, we got that
You
one.
got that one up too? Do you see that? So patterns tell us something. And if you go in and inquire just a little bit closer, you're going to go, oh, look at that. Yeah, that's where I expect to see that because, hey, that's where they should be. And our map bears this out. And this overlap actually shows us the kind of habitat there. So if we were to take a quick minute and type in vegetation map instead of geography. North Dakota vegetation map. We've got western needlegrass in the north, buffalo grass in the south, wheatgrass in the middle, with sage. Okay. Look at that vegetation map. Very distinctive. Okay. So obviously, what did I just say that was? Needlegrass is going to be C3 or C4? C3? I'm going to find that out. Because I have this real cool thing called Google. Needlegrass. Okay, come back here. Let's see. It's a cool season or C3 plant. Bingo! Neat, huh? But this exercise is an exercise, first of all, in curiosity. Can we check our facts? Do we see something that substantiates the pattern recognition that we see here? Then if we are confident in the kinds of things that we're saying we see here, then we can look at that map and go, hey, that's pretty cool. I can see a pattern or a trend where differences are overlapping. And that's why I like to zoom in and see, closer look what's going on there. Okay? All right. So we basically did a little bit of pattern stuff, right? We did a little in-class activity, distributions. What can we learn from this diagram? Patterns by altitude, lower, etc. Note here that grasslands between Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountain. Patterns there. And note the southeastern areas are dominated by C4. North and western portions favor C3. Westernmost areas are driest, dominated by shrubs. Just a couple of things that are sweeping generalizations. Pattern recognition. Looking for trends. Looking for unique things. Because, when we get used to doing that, you guys, when you're looking for perhaps your dissertation subject, something you might want to investigate or invest your time in for your degrees, that might be something that's unique that no one else is seeing, seeing a pattern or recognizing a trend that's new or unobserved before. You go in, you investigate that a little bit more closely, and you get a unique research project out of it. I want to get you looking for patterns and trends. That's what ecology is largely about. And I think that is chapter 2. That means I'm going to pick up on chapter 3 on Thursday. I need your 10 articles on Thursday for lab. Be looking. We're going to go through them very quickly and see what are some distinctiveness, and we'll kind of try to sort out who's going to do what topic for your paper out of that, okay? I did hear back from Malcolm Hodges. He tells me that Loblolly is not that far deep into Marshall Forest, with the area where you park. You kind of go up into that area there. And he hasn't gotten back to me yet answering my question of whether we find Loblolly and Black's Bluff. We'll have to see. If we do, that will formulate our comparison question that we can look at. If not, then we'll concentrate in Marshall Forest. The other thing that we're going to be doing Thursday afternoon, did you read my email? What else are we doing? Soils. I'm going to show you some methodologies. Your lab manual is very helpful overlapping. We'll take a little bit of time, in addition to looking over your papers, to take a look at that first section, Unit 1 in your lab manual. You'll find it very instructive on how to write a good report, how to do statistics, et cetera, et cetera. If you have had statistics, it's a little bit of a refresher for you. If you haven't, it's a great guide to get you in, knowing what you need to do for statistical evaluations. Okay? So that's what we're doing. As promised, every time I will let you know what we're planning on doing for class and lab. Everybody doing okay? All right. So you will have your books by Thursday. Andrew also? Yes? Okay, so we're going to kind of get into more demanding how to use your book kind of stuff as we go into chapter 3. Just making sure everybody's got resources. Bring it to class with you. We'll be using it. Okay? Guys, thank you. I'll see you on Thursday.
I've never seen him with a book bag.
All right, everybody.
I know.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
This is getting ridiculous. You guys are my friends.
Try to.